Shalawama, Shalawama. I'm Dr. Dryasapa from Zion Law School. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is the Astrotheology live stream. Welcome. I'm Dr. Dryasapa from Zion Law School. For those of you who may not know who I am, I want to welcome you. This is our 80th, that's right, 80 presentation of the Devil's Pulpit, Astrotheology, the foremost book on the topic, the absolute foremost authority on astrotheology. This book is rather a collection of sermons that were delivered by the Reverend Robert Taylor in the early 1800s and then compiled into book form in 1857. You can get a free copy of the PDF in the description area of this video. All right, a free copy of the PDF of the Devil's Pulpit in the description area of this video. Throughout all 80 video presentations, we started from the first page of the Devil's Pulpit, and now we are on page 335. Hopefully we can finish the book in this presentation. The book is only 341 pages, all right? Only 341 pages, so hopefully we can complete the book. So congratulations to you if you've been coming here from the beginning, from day one. That means you have covered the entire book. You know what's in the entire book, and you're best prepared for the debriefing, where we're going to discuss everything, literally everything in the book. We're going to discuss it. So this time, well, in all of these live stream presentations, if you're new here, let me say welcome to you first. If you're new, so what we've done, we've read every sentence, every word, every sentence, every paragraph, every chapter, right? And I explained what the author wrote because it's a difficult read. It's a really, really difficult read. And I gave some commentary. You'll see as you go back through the lessons, all right? So anyway, that's what we did. So the next phase of this is to have a discussion about everything. So why is that important? It's important to review what we learned, right? Very important to review what we learn. And I think a lot will come out as we do this discussion, and it'll be, hopefully we can do some call in, and those of you who might want to come in, I'll give you the link and we can come in and have a discussion about it, all right? So that will make the information yours. So again, welcome. This is Astrotheology. I'm Dr. Dryasapa from Zion Law School, and you are looking at on the screen here our streaming 101 Ancient Ibaryath course, all right? So this course is all about language, linguistics, our heritage, that's right. This language, Ancient Ibaryath, you are correct if you're thinking that this is the Canaanite, Phoenician family of languages. You are absolutely correct. Congratulations, you are correct. This is the actual language that our ancestors spoke before there ever was a biblical Hebrew, which did not come into existence, scholars, until when? That's right, you got it right again. Until during or shortly after Babylonian captivity. You are absolutely correct. You are correct. So that was what they're calling these days biblical Hebrew, and modern Hebrew is something totally different, even from biblical Hebrew. All right. So this is the real thing that so for example, Moses spoke and wrote everything that he wrote in Ancient Ibaryath. All right, in Ancient Ibaryath. So this is what it looks like. All right, this is what the script looks like. You're looking at the top line. Below, you'll see the English rendering of the Ibaryath word. All right, so when you subscribe to this course, and I strongly recommend you subscribe to this course, whether you're from the House of Yasharallah or one of the other 16 family of nations of the indigenous people, the people who are sprung from the soil, Genesis chapter 2, the autochthonous people, those of us who are the what? You got it right again. Those of you who are the natural and rightful heirs of all land, all resources, and all commerce on this earth. All right. So you got it again. So congratulations. So make sure you subscribe if you have not subscribed to this now, because this is going to help you tremendously in your return to the Most High, and also scholars, in your peace of mind, and your ability to do what? Get the things that you want, because remember, we're dealing with blessings, tangible gifts, material, tangible, not emotions. Okay, this is the contract, the Mosaic covenant that they call it in religion. You either get lavish gifts, tangible wealth, or you get punishments, sickness, death, disease, sickness, death, disease, poverty, humiliation, right? That's all part of the contract, all right? All right, that's part of it. And so we need to return to that. And here again, for those of you who have been with me for a while, or even just a few live streams, you already know what the basis of this is, right? Why do we need to learn Ancient Ibaryath? What did our ancestor Jeremiah warn us about? Jeremiah lived sometime around the beginning of, well, let me just say this. He was a young man when Babylonian captivity first kicked off. And he gave us this warning. We're at Jeremiah chapter 8, verse 8. All right. We're in the Bible Hub. We're going to read from the Amplified Bible, which, in my opinion, this is the best rendering of the verse. The highlight here, it's the best rendering. So let's go ahead and read it. All right. Now, remember, the topic that we're discussing right now is Ancient Ibaryath, specifically why you should subscribe to the 101 streaming Ancient Ibaryath course. All right, Jeremiah chapter 8, verse 8 reads, how can you say we are wise? Wisdom, of course, is the proper application of knowledge, and that the law, that is the instructions or the commandments of the Most High, is with us. So Jeremiah is saying, how can you say we're applying the Most High's instructions properly? Everybody see that? How can you say we're applying the Most High's instructions properly? All right. How can you say we are wise and that the law or the instructions of the Most High is with us? And what? And we are learned in its language. What language? Ancient Ibaryath. Everybody see that? Look at the script. In this course, you'll become familiar with the script, grammar rules, parts of speech, so on and so forth, all right? How can you say we are wise and the law of the Most High is with us, and we are learned in Ancient Ibaryath, and we are learned in its language and teachings? What teachings? Clearly, the law, the Most High's instructions, his commandments. Behold, the truth is that the lying pen of the scribes. All right, so the scribes, my ancestors and your ancestors, what did they do? They wrote lies. They wrote lies into the documents. Behold, the truth is that the lying pen of the scribes has what? has made the law into a lie. Everybody see that? The truth is that the lying pen of the scribes has made the law into a lie, a mere code of ceremonial observances. So what are ceremonial observances? By definition, this is religion. So our ancestors, these scribes, wrote lies that converted our instructions, the laws, okay, I prefer instructions, into religion. Everybody see that? What religion? Okay, so our time frame is Babylonian captivity. So what happened during or shortly after Babylonian captivity? Judaism began. That's a religion, okay? In fact, that religion replaced the natural people, replaced the nation, a bloodline of people attached to a landmass, that is the promised land, who shared a common culture, common language, common economy, common customs, common language, ancient Ibaryath. How can we sum those things up? Heritage, right? Heritage, okay? So our ancestors created religion. Judaism, what followed Judaism? Christianity, what followed Christianity? Islam. Everybody see that? Everybody see how that happened? So how do we reverse this? Or in other words, how do we what? How do we uncover these lies? Well, at Zion Law School, we call these lies Jeremiah 8:8 occurrences, right? We call the lies the deception, right? Or even honest mistakes, Jeremiah 8:8 occurrences. So our task as a people is to uncover the lies that our ancient ancestors wrote in our records. Is that clear, scholars? That should be perfectly clear, right? Now, if we uncover the lies, that allows us to do what? It allows us to eliminate those lies and return to what? Return to the Most High's teachings, his instructions, which is critically important. Why? Because in the contract, which religions call the Mosaic Covenant, you have two options. You either get blessed or you get cursed. Now, when we say blessed, what do we mean, scholars? When we say blessed, or when the scripture rather says blessed, what that means, again, it's not an emotion and it's not a relationship. It's none of that. It's none of that. It means physical, tangible gifts. And I'm just giving you right now, a very superficial view of what that word blessing actually means in Ibaryath, okay? If you want to know more, come to our Saturday class at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's free for you. It's absolutely free for you. So there's no reason for you not to show up. You can come twice for free. At minimum, you can come twice. Sometimes I let people stay longer, right? In fact, right now, there's somebody who's been coming longer than his two, right? Just depends on the situation. The important thing is to come and learn, because what's going to happen when you subscribe to the 101 streaming Ancient Ibaryath course that you're looking at right now, you're going to be introduced into some background info. Let me show you how all of this is related. I'm not going to go into a big discussion. I just want to orient you. All right, so you'll go into a discussion. You'll learn about the history of Ibaryath. All right, you'll learn about why they deceived us and altered our documents. Okay, you're going to learn a lot. You're going to learn a lot of information, okay? You're going to learn about the all-important Hebrew versus Greek paradigm. All right, that's part one. Part two, you're going to learn everything pictographs, and you're going to get 225 vocabulary words. All right. Not only that, but you're going to be introduced into Ibaryath word studies. These Ibaryath word studies are something phenomenal. I mean, you have to see what we put together in this streaming course. You have to see it in order to understand it and in order to believe it. All right, in order to believe it. Let me just tell you this. There's hidden meaning locked inside of every Ibaryath word. And if you know how to conduct an Ibaryath word study, you can actually unlock those jewels and get access to meaning that is not contained in your lexicon, your dictionary. Everybody understand that. This is very powerful, very personal, and very powerful, but you have to see it to believe it, and you have to see it in order to be able to know how to do it. All right, you have to see the demonstrations, and the demonstrations are very powerful and moving, all right, and touching, meaningful, believe me, when you see them. All right, and then part three, we go into the grammar. So on our Saturday class, let me show y'all our Saturday class information. All right, let me show you this. When you come to class, now remember, I'm telling you free stuff, okay? Well, the 101 streaming course, that's almost free. That's only $10. But when you come to the 506 The Curses course right here, 506 The Curses course, this is where we break down every word in Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 15 through 29. And we show you step by step what those words really actually mean, and then how those words are formed, or how the words are constructed. In other words, the morphology of the word, step by step, all right, in great detail, and it's fun. We have a great group of scholars, and now the time is not, I need to, I'm gonna change this in just a second. The time is 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay, so everybody is invited. 10 Saturdays, every Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So when you come here, we're going to show you how to use the information that you learn in the streaming 101 Ancient Ibaryath course. So in other words, you're going to see us using this information. So for example, suppose you're looking at a toolbox and it has carpenter's tools in it, right? You're looking at the toolbox. What does it mean? It really doesn't mean anything, because you're looking at a bunch of tools in a toolbox, right? Yeah, that's what you call it, a toolbox. You're just looking at the tool sitting there. But when you come to the 101, when you come to our Saturday class at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is a live online class, you'll actually see us using those tools to build the original meaning of the verses. So in that whole process, scholars, you'll learn how to translate and how to render. Y'all got me? Zion Law School scholars know exactly what I'm talking about. You'll know how to translate or render the scriptures on your own, all right? That's what you'll learn how to do. All right, so now let's take a look at our PDF, all right? By the way, scholars, call somebody, let them know that we are live. This might be our last live stream where we're actually reading. We might complete the book today. All right, just depends on the complexity of what we're going to read right now. All right, so again, we're going to begin on page 325. This is the chapter on the Redeemer, right? This is the Redeemer chapter. This is the last chapter. All right, we have 6 more pages to go before we conclude the book and we move forward again to our to our debriefing series of videos, all right? That's gonna be very thorough also. So before I begin, let me say thank you to all of those people who hold it down in the comment section. You add such great quality, such great additional quality to these live streams. So everybody who watches these live streams today and the future, owe you a big thanks for being willing to share your knowledge with people and even answer their questions, okay? So I appreciate you very much for that. Those of you who are new, don't be shy, ask questions, put your questions in the comment. Those people who are holding it down, you'll quickly see who they are. If they're able to answer your questions, I'm sure they will. It helps me a great deal because I can focus on the presentation. So let's make this a most outstanding live stream. So let's keep it jumping in the comments section, y'all. So here we go. And new people, welcome. Here we go. The Devil's Pulpit by the Reverend Robert Taylor, page 335. Let's begin with the top paragraph. All right, the top paragraph right here. Here we go. No sooner was believing the gross sense of the dead and deadly letter of the text of the New Testament substituted in the place of a critical and philosophical understanding of its spirit and intention, then a fierce and furious zeal for the gospel was allowed to supersede all necessity of obedience to its moral inference. So what is the author talking about? The author is talking about, when we go back to live stream number 79, the Devil's Pulpit, the religious leaders, that would be the priests, the pastors, all of that, right? Because they were angry at the author for telling the truth about what he had learned in Freemasonry. Remember, the author's major claim is that the Gospels are a fairy tale, and that the Gospels actually tell the story of the sun traveling through the sky. In other words, natural phenomena, right? Okay, so that's a huge summary. That's a very broad summary. But the author, using etymology, church father writings, okay, actual church father writings, mythology, okay, mythological writings, the stories, architecture and art, textual criticism, all of these grouped together, philology, to quote unquote reveal or expose the hidden meaning of the Gospels. And that hidden meaning is intentionally hidden. So because the author, this is for all you new people, so because the author did that, they brought him to court, and they're going to have him put in jail a second time and heavily fined an amount that they know he can't pay. So he would go to debtor's prison, which in law is hell. Okay, and he would not be able to get out of prison. In other words, he'd die in there, and they'd make sure he died. He'd probably be dead within a couple of weeks because of what they would do to him. So the author is saying that they did all of this to him, and they had no regard for what? No regard for the moral responsibilities of a Christian, especially a Christian religious leader. Everybody see that? All right, so let me read this paragraph again. I think this is a very important paragraph to understand, but this is my opinion. Maybe you disagree, but it's my opinion. No sooner was believing the gross sense of the dead and deadly letter of the text of the New Testament. So now he expanded it beyond the four Gospels to include the entire New Testament. Y'all see that? Substituted in the place of a critical and philosophical understanding of its spirit and intention. Y'all see that? So these religious leaders, when you do something they don't like, all of this morality and doing right by people goes out of the window. This is what the author is saying, okay? So what he's saying, in other words, they're hypocrites. Then a fierce and furious zeal for the gospel was allowed to supersede all necessity of obedience to its moral inference. All right, I think that point is clear enough. Let's continue. The moral detail drawn out on the scientific groundwork of the natural phenomena of, quote, the acceptable year of the capital LORD, we know that has an astronomical reference, the allegorized history of the SUN sun, exhibited to the perceptions of the wise, the wrongs and sorrows, which the principle of reason would have to undergo. And I don't know if this is a typo here, but y'all take a look at that. I don't know what, see the highlight? I don't know what that says. So Cree, whatever that is, it would come to triumph as ultimately it will over barbarous ignorance and sanctified malignity. All right, so again, he's going into the moral argument, but what is he saying? The moral detail drawn out on the scientific groundwork of natural phenomena. So in other words, the natural phenomena, you look up at the starry heaven and everything moves precisely, more precisely than the finest of the finest time watches, right? Everything is precise. Everything is moving precisely each year, all right? Each year, it's science, okay? That has been rewritten into a moral story that they're calling the gospel. This is what the author is talking about. Again, the natural phenomena is hidden in a moral story, all right, which includes the gospels, and the author has extended it to the New Testament. Now let's continue. The principle of reason, the logos, science, or truth itself personified is the Jesus of the fable. What fable? The Gospels. Again, who is Jesus? Now we're talking about the moral. The author has moved to the moral side now, all right? Not the astronomical side. So let's look at the moral, or the what? The story that they're calling the gospel that everybody can see, all right? The visible story, the principle of reason, the logos, the science or truth itself personified is the Jesus of the Gospels, of the fable. The representatives of the barbarous ignorant are the Jewish rabblement. So the Jewish rabbis are the wild, wicked, immoral people who want to, kill off the Christ figure. That's what he's saying, all right? The religious church and chapel-going villains, egged on by their priests and preachers and Methodist persons to cry out against him what they know not wherefore, and to hate him for they know not what, or they don't know why they hate him other than the religious leaders told them to hate them. So they're blindly following the religious leaders. So who would that be? Who would that be? So this crowd would be analogous to that crowd of Jews in the story who said that they wanted the Christ figure dead. Y'all remember the story, right? That's what the author is talking about. So one, Jesus of the story of the gospel is the principle of reason. He's the logos, he's science, he's truth. All right. The Jewish rabbis, let me read that again. The representatives of the barbarous ignorance are the Jewish rabbis. All right, so these are the religious leaders who demanded that JC, the Christ figure, be brought up on charges before Pontius Pilate. All right, and then that crowd there that the Jewish religious leaders got all hyped up, that's this group of their followers in the paragraph. So let's move to the next paragraph. The chief priests and elders and all the council seeking for false witness against him, and very easily finding it to be sure, are the Society for the Suppression of Vice. So go back and watch live stream number 77, 76, or 78 to find out more about the Society for the Suppression of Vice and what their function is. The key is what their function is and who the players are. All right, so be sure that if you missed that, to go back and watch that. All right, the chief priests and elders and all the council seeking for false witness against him, and very easily finding it to be sure, are the Society for the Suppression of Vice. Now, I'll tell you this, it was the Society for the Suppression of Vice who brought charges against the author for revealing these secret Masonic secrets, all right, secret Masonic information that the Gospels are a fable, all right? With the clergy and dignitaries of the church at their head, not acting openly and above board, but in council and secret cabal. Y'all got that? So the the Society for the Suppression of Vice, how do they act and who are its members? Its members are the clergy and dignitaries of the church. All right. Do they act openly and above board? No, they don't. They act in secret cabal, employing their wealth to defray the expenses of prosecution. Now, what is the author referring to? In live stream number 79, 78 and 79, either both or 79, the author brought to our attention that this Society for the Suppression of Vice actually paid off witnesses to lie, and actually paid off the jury. And it's more. So go back and watch that. I don't want to tell you everything. Go back and watch it. All right. So let's continue. It continues here. And urging on the blackguard people of capital God to cry, crucify him, crucify him. And to the reasonable question, quote, why? What evil has he done, end quote? To cry out so much more, let him be crucified. Sound familiar, right? So then, so that when the deed, or when they kill him, so that when they actually exterminate the author, the religious leaders will be able to do what? Let's continue. So that when the deed shall have been done, that is, they exterminate the author, each particular reverend and right reverend may still be able to lay claim to the praise of setting his face against all sorts of persecution and say, like the Scottish murderer to the ghost of Banquo, quote, thou canst not say I did it. Y'all got it? So the author is telling you how these religious leaders organizes themselves, how they function through these organized organizations. And they go, as they say in the Philippines, they go at you at the back. They start paying people off. They use their money And they do everything behind the scenes to set you up. Everybody see that? And they're going to set you up in such a way where they can turn around and say, you did it, not me. I had nothing to do with it. But they stir you up to turn against your own leaders, to turn against your own teachers. And you start calling for your own teacher to be punished. And the religious leaders will say, I'm innocent. You got it? So don't fall victim. Don't fall victim to what they do. All right? You already know. And this is the same thing that they did to what? They did this to the Christ figure, right? This is the same methodology, same technique that they did to the Christ figure to get the people to say they wanted him exterminated, all right? So in other words, this ain't nothing new, y'all. It's obvious then to all impartial criticisms that the Gospels, though their details are various, so what is he saying here? Each Gospel writer gives a different account, right? So they're, in the religion I used to be involved in, they will call them seeming contradictions. So he's referencing seeming contradictions, all right? Or contradictions, depending on your point of view. It is obvious then to all impartial criticisms that the Gospels, though their details are various and their particular incidents wholly irreconcilable with each other, are not in the least degree false or contradictory, because the detail and the incidents are no essentialities of it. In other words, the author is saying, it doesn't matter that John says one thing and Peter says another about the same event. That doesn't matter. That's what the author is saying. He's saying that these details don't matter, okay? They don't matter. Let's continue, see if he tells us why. The moral, that is the moral of the Gospels, the moral of the New, in other words, the moral of the story, the moral of the story of the Gospels or the New Testament is wholly unaffected by what? Those seeming contradictions, those different accounts from one gospel to the other. The moral is wholly unaffected. However, the circumstances of the allegory may be varied. In other words, the circumstances of the story. He's calling it an allegory because remember, his major claim is that the Gospels are a fairy tale. All right, so let's continue. The only line of truth to be observed, and which is not and may not be compromised, is that it is whatever way and whatever means, it is always ignorance and prejudice that seek the destruction of learning and virtue. It is always the self-interested and crafty who excite that prejudice and endeavor to perpetrate that ignorance. So let me turn the page for y'all. So what is the author saying? What is the author saying right here? The author is saying that those seeming contradictions, they don't matter. And the reason why they don't matter is because there is a prominent truth that supersedes all of that, which is the actual moral of the story. And this is it. I'm going to read it again. The only line of truth to be observed. All right, the only line of truth to be observed. In other words, the most important thing about the Gospels, as far as the moral story, about the moral of the Gospel, is this. Notice, it is always ignorance and prejudice. See, the author is saying that this is the moral of the story of the Gospels. It is always ignorance and prejudice that seek the destruction of learning and virtue. In other words, the author is saying this. It's always these religious zealots, these religious fanatics, these religious people who are making a living off of their congregation. These are the ignorant people that he's talking about, these fanatics, all right? We call them religious leaders, the priest, so on and so forth. It's always them who want to destroy those people who are thinking rationally and scientifically using language as a science. Again, philology. You'll understand me. Unless you are able to read and comprehend, you're not going to know what you're reading, although you are pronouncing the words. Y'all follow me? Y'all with me? You can sit there and speak the words out loud, but you're not going to understand what you're reading. And because you don't understand what you're reading, you can be taken advantage of, and you are being taken advantage of. That's the author's point. Is it clear, y'all? That's the author's point. You are being taken advantage of and you don't know it. Why is that? Because you do not understand etymology. You do not understand that language is a science. You know what? Give me 1 second, y'all. Let me make sure that we got sound. All right. So hopefully I can increase the volume of, let me see. Give me 1 second, y'all. All right. I just want to make sure that the volume is okay. On my end, the volume was quite low. Mic check, mic check. So hopefully I can increase the volume. Oh boy. All right. So I'm gonna have to go back and listen to the live stream because I don't know if it's coming through clearly, but we'll go through it, and depending on how it turns out, if the volume is not right or if the sound is not right, I'll just go back and redo the live stream, y'all. Okay, don't worry about it. But for now, let's continue. Okay. So in other words, it's the religious leaders who want to keep you dumb and dumber and dumber and dumber, right? They want to keep you dumb and dumber and dumber, right? According to the author, the religious leaders are what? Ignorant and prejudiced. So it's that ignorant and prejudiced quality about them that want to destroy you and keep you from learning. All right, so let's continue. So we're at the top of page 336. It is the top paragraph. It is always the self-interested and crafty. That would be the religious leaders, right? Self-interested. They want to keep that religious thing going so they can keep getting paid, keep getting your life insurance and your tithe. It is always the self-interested and the crafty who excite that prejudice and endeavor to perpetuate that ignorance, prejudice against you, because you are looking at the real meaning of words, right? You're looking at the etymology. You're looking at the history, the church father writings, the art, the architecture, everything we just talked about. You're looking at these sciences when you read the Gospels or the New Testament, and you see what's beneath or what's hidden. And because of that, they're prejudiced against you, and they want to do away with you because they don't want you to mess up their party, right? They've been partying and having a great time for generations off of us, all right? And they don't want that to end. That's really it in a nutshell, y'all. They don't want the party to end. They want to keep partying like a rock star at our expense, all right? Y'all got that? And they're going to protect it, even if it means that they're going to have to exterminate anybody who gets in the way. So let me take a minute, and I got to do the settings, y'all. All right, so give me a second. Let me update these settings because if I don't do it while the video is going, the settings, they won't stick, okay? So y'all be patient with me, all right? I gotta notify people that this live stream is actually happening right now. So I gotta notify people, be patient. It only take me a minute. I'm getting fast. I've gotten fast, rather faster with doing these settings, all right? So the key, again, according to the author, the primary theme, the major theme of the gospel is that these fanatical religious leaders, priests, pastors, what have you, they want to keep us ignorant. They don't want us to learn etymology. They don't want us to learn anything that's going to help us read and comprehend, right? That's what it comes down to. It comes down to being able to read and comprehend. They don't want us to be able to do that, because once you have a grasp on grammar, parts of speech, all of these type of things, etymology. See, once you understand that, well, guess what? Guess what? Now you have the ability, if you want, you have the ability, if you have the desire, you have the ability to uncover real easily, very, very easily, the hidden meaning underneath any translated document. All right. Well, I could say any document at all, even if it's in English, right? You have the ability, now you have the power to read that thing and understand what it says without being filtered through religious doctrine, okay? In other words, they won't be able to control you if you understand this information, right? So they don't want you to know, right? So I always tell people, when we deal with these people, you have to remember that they're gangsters. They're criminals and they're gangsters, right? And so you have to, I'm giving you my opinion, all right? You have to deal with them from the point of view that you're dealing with a known criminal or a known group of organized criminals, meaning that you can't trust anything they say and anything that they do, right? You cannot trust them. You have to expect the worst and be happy if you don't see the worst, all right? But know that the worst is coming, because people like this, they just don't give up, right? They just don't stop, right? They just don't stop. They're gonna come back at you, right? They're gonna come back at you, and they're gonna come back at you through what? Through means that you would never expect. Like, for example, through your family, through your friends, right? In other words, they're gonna do what? Get some people to sell you out. All right, now that's just how they roll, right? That's how they roll. So we should be aware of that and not get upset with our own people just because we hear things we don't like, because you don't even know if that's true. You don't know if that's propaganda, right? So moral of the story is what? Let it go. Don't let these people come between you and your teachers or people who you care about, right? Because we know that we're dealing with gangsters and known criminals, right? We know their character. All right, y'all, so I finished the settings. We can get back to work. All right, so let me go back now to check our live stream, make sure our live stream is going, and then we'll be in business. Oh man, all right. So let's see. I'm gonna see, hopefully we still have a stream. So give me 1 second, let me make sure Mic check, mic check, mic check. All right, so we're good to go, y'all. So let's continue. Let's continue with our lesson. All right, so we are on page 336, and I'm going to highlight the paragraph here. So this is where we'll begin. All right, so we will begin here. So let's begin. From which the moral is, to the good and the wise, that they should learn to meet with fortitude. To the good and the wise, that they should learn to meet with fortitude, to bear with patience, and to forgive with boundless philanthropy. In other words, you give your things that have value to help people. All right. The persecutions and wrongs from which perfection itself could not be exempted. So when people persecute you and do wrongs, according to the author, we should be forgiving. All right. And we should be able to be willing, rather, to help people without limitation. Now, let me say, I strongly disagree with that. I very strongly disagree with that. Why do I disagree with that? Because of my personal experience in life. My personal experience in life has been this. When I was in Christianity, imitating the Christ figure and, doing all of that you're supposed to do. And I was doing it, like Dr. Clark says, I was out poping the Pope, right? Anybody who knows me during that part of my life, they would tell you that, right? I was always very, what they call, zealous and in the ministry, and basically people walked over me, right? People walked over me, and I would just accept it, right? You have to be long suffering, you have to be kind, you have to be loving, forgiving, and I went through years and years and years and years, decades of that before I finally, and I knew, I tell y'all this, I knew within the first 3 years that strategy did not work, because I went from being a person who people feared. I went from being a person who people feared, right? They feared me because if you walked up on me, that was it for you. And everybody knew that. So nobody messed with me. I had no problems with people, all right? People feared me. But when I did this Christianity thing, being Christ-like, now even chumps became lions because they knew I wasn't going to do anything. Y'all follow me? So I've had some of the worst things happen to me because people knew that I was an easy target, but you couldn't tell me that, right? So after about 3 years into Christianity, I started to realize it, but I made every excuse and, rationale, I have to do this and, and do that. This is the right thing to do. What else is there? You go through this. You go through this tension, I guess. And you try to do what's right, or at least I tried to do what was right and learn and correct myself. Or, I have to have this attitude. I got to make this adjustment in my personality. All of that stuff that you go through. And in the end, when things started to get extreme with the things that people would do to me and just completely mess up my life or mess up what I was doing, right? Eventually, I got to the point where I said, well, wait a minute. You know what? This just does not work. It sounds good, but it has not worked in my life. And then I looked around at other people who were also trying to be Christ-like, and their lives were disasters, but they were really trying, right? They were really trying, but their lives were complete disasters, okay? Almost everybody that I knew, but the people who were not doing it, they seemed to be succeeding, All right. Now, maybe it's different in your life, but that's how it went in my life. So that and a whole bunch of other reasons, I came to the conclusion that Christianity, much like theoretical mathematics, theoretical physics, it sounds good on paper, but in practice, it falls apart, it crumbles. All right. So I decided I'm not going to be an easy target anymore, and I'm going to live my life in such a way that's practical. But anyway, that's how it went down for me. So I strongly disagree with the author on this, not because of some intellectual reason, but because of my personal experience in life. So let's continue to the next paragraph. The admonition to the, oh, by the way, I had a friend, he was like me, you know, he was very zealous, trying to do everything right for years and years and years. And I'm talking about like really zealous, y'all. Like we were doing 90, 100, 110 hours in the ministry per month, right? Knocking on doors, preaching on street corners. I think the most Bible studies I had at one time per month, I think was probably 7, maybe 9. But my buddy, he always had like 11, 12. But he was going out a lot more often than I was. But he was really good. Unfortunately, he experienced some psychological problems. And I always wondered if it had something to do with Christianity and how it played out in his life, you know, and if it was something that that made him snap, or that triggered something that triggered the early onset of the issue that he has. But anyway, let's continue. But that was a good friend of mine at that time. Really, really good. It was so sad, y'all, to see people go through something like that. Then I found out that in that religious organization that there's a whole lot of mental illness, right? But that's something else. Let's continue. The admonition to the less learned and less wise, oh, that they would take it in good part. The admonition to the less learned and less wise is how little they should trust themselves to be ruled by priests. So in other words, the gospel, another moral of the story in the gospels is that the people should not trust the priest. Don't let the priest rule over you. All right. That's what the author is saying here. That's another moral of the story. Don't let yourself be ruled over by priests. And how the man whom their priest has delivered over to their prejudice might, if they had not done, hold on, y'all. Let me repeat that. All right. So the admonition to the less learned and less wise, these would be people who what? People who don't know etymology. People who don't know etymology. People who don't know linguistics. All right. Now, you can also extend this, right? Now, here he's dealing with the Gospels, but you can also say people who do not know Ancient Ibaryath are less learned and less wise. Why? Because you're looking at something in English and you don't really know what it means, right? In the original language. You're doing what? You're trusting the priest. You're trusting the translators, right? And in this case, the translators are who? Your open enemy. The translators are your open enemy. So what makes you think they're going to tell you anything that's going to help you? All right. That's why he's saying that you're less learned and you're less wise. All right. The admonition to the less learned and less wise is how little they should trust themselves to be ruled by the priest, and how the man whom their priests have delivered over to their prejudice might, if they had but done themselves the justice to inquire into his character, prove to be their best and greatest benefactor. So what is the author saying here? The author is saying, don't trust a priest, a church to lead you. In other words, don't trust Martin Luther King to lead you. Y'all see what happened? See what happened, right? We had our own stuff. We were segregated. We had our own stuff, our own businesses. We were doing quite well, according to the economists, right? We had more wealth then by far than what we have now. But Martin Luther King, the religious leader, told us we should be integrated. That happened. Look at what happened after that. Integration, okay? What followed? Civil rights, Black Power movement. And where did this word black come from all of a sudden, right? Black used to be an insult. Now you have a Black Power movement. Y'all follow me? Okay, what happens next? Public policy, the war on drugs, right? Where drugs were put in your neighborhood by guess who? Guess who put those drugs in your neighborhoods in the 1960s and 70s? Guess who did that? What's the same people who set up the public policy for child support and then private prisons? Y'all follow me? And then crack, and then put everybody in jail. Long sentences in private prisons. And then what? Shipped. They were shipping the manufacturing out to China and Mexico and setting up what? Private prisons to employ those people and put you in the prison as a prisoner. Y'all see that? And now look what's happening today. And y'all know what I'm talking about, right? Look at what they've done to the family through their public policy, through entertainment. Look at what they've done to your children. Got boys and men wearing skirts and their pants down to their butt. Boys wanting to be girls and girls wanting to be boys, and men wanting men and boys wanting men, and vice versa. Don't trust your religious leaders. Jesse Jackson, what did he do? Jesse Jackson said that y'all are African American, right? The Reverend Jesse Jackson. All of that leading he was done. Look at where he led everybody into a ditch. Anyway, let's continue. The author is saying, don't trust a religious leader. Don't follow him. His next point is that when a religious leader tells you this person is bad, don't believe them. When the religious leaders tell you that you should not like somebody, or they accuse somebody, for example, like they accused the Christ figure, the religious leaders, the author is saying, don't believe them. Why? Because they're known liars and gangsters. That's why. And the author continues, he says that what? That person that they're accusing, in this case, it's the author, the Reverend Robert Taylor. He's saying that the accused person could be your best benefactor. They could be somebody who could help you the most. So use your brain and think. Maybe it's what that person can help you with is why the religious leader is accusing them and trying to get you to turn against that person so they can turn around and say, I had nothing to do with it, right? Same as what happened with the Christ figure when they, the whole story about him being, leading up to him being impaled or crucified, right? So let's continue. We are here. We're here. This is really the moral of the gospel. Y'all got that? this is really the moral of the gospel. But in the main design of the secret writ, of the sacred writ, that's the gospel, the scope and interpretation is entirely a matter of science, and the moral only contingent, as a moral might attach to the game of chess or to a problem in Euclid. That's a problem in mathematics, right? In which the moral idea of precision and accuracy, of method and conduct, of order, of justice, of truth, cannot be separated from our observance of the beauty we perceive and the pleasure we derive in the accuracy of scientific demonstration. What scientific demonstration? The author has shown us time and time again, etymological scientific demonstrations. Always remember that language is a science. Language is a science. The author has showed us radicals and their meaning in Greek, also Hebrew, and then how they were translated in English very often to say something that had nothing to do with the original meaning and everything to do with a doctrine, promoting, creating a doctrine, right? What other scientific demonstration? Of course, the stars. Of course, the stars. How they move together, their functions, right? He did a lot of that. He did a lot of etymology too. And what else? Church Father writings, history, the history of the Church Father writings, the history of the architecture of these magnificent cathedrals, the history of mythology, etc., etc., etc. All right. So that's what the author is talking about. But again, the moral of the story, let me read this again. The author says, don't trust your religious leaders. And when they accuse somebody, don't believe them, because that person might be your greatest benefactor. That or this is really the moral of the gospel. Y'all got that? In other words, the religious leaders are crooks, criminals, and gangsters not to be trusted. Next paragraph, y'all. Next paragraph. The text, quote, I know that my Redeemer liveth, etc. Y'all got that? The text, quote, I know that my Redeemer liveth. That's coming from Job. I forgot the chapter. Let me get the chapter for y'all. That's Job chapter 19, verse 25. Quote, I know that my Redeemer liveth, etc., is of this entirely scientific character. And the moral corollary, no part of the proposition itself is nothing more than an interference, rather, let me repeat that, is nothing more than an inference as to the pleasure of hope in any object, and the utilities which the principle of hope may subserve in strengthening a man's courage to contend with the difficulties of his immediate situation. So what does this mean? Quote, I know that my Redeemer liveth. The author is saying that this verse gives you hope, regardless of what you're facing, gives you hope, right? It gives you hope, and hope serves a very, very strong and meaningful purpose. Let's continue. Next paragraph. The words of the text derive a particular solemnity with the circumstances of their being read in the office of the burial of the dead, and a particular familiarity to the minds of musical amateurs from their forming the most magnificent anthem in the oratorio of the Messiah, the sound being the only part of the business which Christians have ever to attend to. In other words, they attend to the sound, but not the substance. All right. But the meaning of it, but the meaning of this verse, quote, I know that my Redeemer liveth, O capital G-O-D, none but an infidel would ever have dreamed of its having any meaning. Y'all got that? The author appears to be being sarcastic here. The moment you bring to want to know the meaning of a thing, your Christian neighbors will put you down as, quote, a wicked and evil disposed person, end quote. Y'all remember the author has already said in a few paragraphs up that the religious leaders want to keep us dumb and dumber and dumber and dumber, all right? The moment you begin to want to know the meaning of a thing, how are you going to do that? Through philology, through etymology. Subscribe now, if you haven't already done so, to 101 Ancient Ibaryath, zionlawschool.org. The link is in the description area of this video. The moment you begin to want to know the meaning of a thing, your Christian neighbors will put you down as, quote, a wicked and evil despised person, end quote. When you seek to be wise above what is written, though what is written be the greatest nonsense that ever was written, they consider you as a dangerous man in an immoral character, one whose conversation is to be avoided, whose company is to be shunned. I know all about this, y'all. I know all about that. Men would grow wiser for it. Let me repeat that. Men would grow wiser for it, you see, and the consequence would be that the empire of folly and fanaticism would be endangered, and clergymen would not be able to get a living. Let's repeat that. And clergymen and religious leaders would not be able to get a living. Notice he didn't say earn a living. He said what? Get a living. Let me show it. I like his choice of words. And clergymen, priests, etc., would not be able to get a living. So if you already haven't done so, subscribe to 101 Ancient Ibaryath, all right? This is our streaming course. You can do this course at home. This course is going to, trust me, it's going to set you on a path of reclamation and liberation. Reclamation of your birthright, your heritage, which includes your language, which is Ancient Ibaryath. So show respect for your own heritage. Show respect for your own heritage, okay, y'all? And subscribe to the 101 Ancient Ibaryath course. This course is basically free, $10 a month, no contract, cancel anytime. All right. So this will do nothing but benefit you greatly. All right. So don't be scared and don't be cheap. All right, because this is free as can get, $10 per month. All right. I don't know what cigarettes cost, but I'm sure it's close to $10, if not more. All right, so we are on page 337. 337. Let me see what's happening in our live stream. Make sure we still got sound. Free as it can get. All right, so we still got sound. All right. By the way, if you want to support my work, or if you want to support Zion Law School, I'm going to put the Cash App, my Cash App, in the comment section. All right. Cash App is $, Dr. Yasapa, $DRYASAPA. Cash App is $DRYASAPA, $DRYASAPA. And our Cash App is PayPal. No, our PayPal is paypal.me/Zion Law School. All right. So let's go back to I put those links in the comment section. All right, so let's go back. So again, we are at the top of page 337. here, I'm going to begin reading here. So it is enough for them to know that somebody said, though the devil may care who, that he, quote, knew that his Redeemer was alive, and that after he was dead, he would be alive himself, end quote. And then about his flesh and his skin and the worms' meat, that's right, because remember the worms are eating the dead person, right? So the worms are, that's what he's talking about, the worms on the skin of the decomposing body of the man. And then about his flesh and his skin and the worm's meat coming to life again, which is devilishly like to do. So the author is saying that this man who has died, his body is decomposing and it has worms on it, right? Because the worms are going to help in the decomposition process. Now this man is going to come alive again according to the verse. This is what the author is telling us. According to the verse, this dead man with worms on his body, the skin, everything is decomposing, is going to come alive again in the same body. Let's continue to the next paragraph. And then when all the skin was off, raw head and bloody bones was to see, capital G-O-D, in his flesh, without any skin on it. A pretty pickle to see, capital G-O-D, in other words, just imagine a decomposed body with worms on it, coming alive, and then going to see, capital G-O-D. Y'all got it? Nobody being able to tell us whether it was the man that was to see, capital G-O-D, in his own flesh, that's the decomposed flesh with worms on it, or whether capital G-O-D was going to run away with the man's flesh. But as for the skin, that seems to have been not worth a resurrection. Y'all got that? It was more holy than righteous. The worms might have that. So in other words, the author is saying the skin has been decomposed, eaten by worms. But why isn't the skin what? Brought back. In this case, brought back to new. Why wasn't it also resurrected? That's what the author is saying. Why wasn't it made new again? All right. So let's continue. Go ask your clergy to show you. Go ask your clergy to show you some relevancy in all this jumble of absurdity. So all this jumble of absurdity the author is talking about is, again, this deceased, decomposing man with worms all over his body being made alive again, going to see, capital G-O-D, in this decomposed body. All right, that's what the author is calling absurd. Okay, so go ask your clergy to show you some relevancy in all this jumble of absurdity, some method in this language of apparent madness, some sense of it in the understanding of which a man may stand accused in his own reason for pronouncing it to be reasonable. They cannot do so. In other words, the author is saying, this is complete madness, is complete nonsense to think that a dead, decomposed body with worms all over it is going to come back to life and then go before capital G-O-D in that decomposed body. Author is saying that's madness. Go ask your clergy to explain that madness, and they cannot do so. All that they can do is to warn you. All that they can do is to warn you not to go near the rotunda. The rotunda is the location where the author gave these sermons, which are now compiled in this book. The rotunda is the location where the author gave these astrotheology sermons, including what we're reading right now. He gave them at the rotunda. All they can do is to warn you not to go near the rotunda, where you will find the man who can explain this topic that we're talking about, the matter that we're talking about. where you'll find the man who can explain Job chapter 19, Job chapter 19, verse 25, and I'm going to read it here. This is me reading, it's not in the text. Quote, I know that my Redeemer liveth, and that he shall stand at the latter day upon the earth. And though after my skin worms destroy this body, yet in my flesh shall I see, capital G-O-D, whom I shall see for myself, and mine eyes shall behold, and not another. End quote. Job chapter 19, verse 25. Let's continue. Author writes, the author writes, all that they can do is warn you not to go near the rotunda, where you will find a man who can explain Job chapter 19, verse 25, which we just read. And so they club together in their dark coteries. What's the club? The Society for the, what was it? The Society for the Preservation or for the Prevention of Vice, or something like that we just read. Oh, the Society for the Suppression of Vice. That's the club he was referring to. All right, to accuse him of reviling the scriptures, to accuse the author of reviling the scripture, who never reviled anything but their most gross, filthy misunderstanding of scripture, and of blasphemy, and of blaspheming the word of capital G-O-D, who never blasphemed. The author is saying, who is the author? Who never blasphemed anything but the corrupt glosses and false interpretations. So what are glosses? Zion Law School scholars know what glosses are, and they know what interpretations are, because we deal with glosses every class. We deal with interpretations every class. Let me show you what the author is talking about here. This is an example of Jeremiah 8:8, right? Let me read that again. All right, it says here, it says, and of blaspheming the word of capital G-O-D, who never blasphemed anything but the corrupt glosses. Zion Law School scholars take note. The corrupt glosses and false interpretations which they have put on scripture, and which, because they dared not submit them to the trial of discussion, they seek to defend by the tyrannous arm of power. In other words, instead of presenting evidence to the people that the author was lying about his claim that the Gospels are a fairy tale, they decided to try to have the man put in jail and then to find him and kill him, exterminate him rather. All right. So here is what the author is talking about. Jeremiah chapter 8, verse 8, Amplified Bible. How can you say we are wise and the law of the Most High is with us and we are learned in its language, Ancient Ibaryath, and teachings, the law? Behold, the truth is that the lying pen of the scribes, in this case, is these gospel writers, right? The religious leaders, the translators, as the author calls them, the author calls them the Christian salvation, right? Because you need them in order to understand what the texts say, and without them, you won't understand what the texts say, and therefore you're doomed to burn in hell, because you cannot do what you're supposed to do, because the texts are in Greek. So you need a salvation in addition to your Christ figure. That's the author's point. All right, how can you say we are wise and the law of the Most High is with us and we are learned in its language and teachings? Behold, the truth. The truth is that the lying pen of the scribes have made the law into a lie. Y'all got that? A mere code of ceremonial observances. Let's go back to the author. The author says here, let me find it again. Let's go. I need to go back. Let's go back to the author. All right, so where were we? Okay, so I think we're over here somewhere. Hold on, y'all. Let me look at my book. Oh, yeah. So we're here. All right. So the author said he exposed their corrupt glosses. This is Jeremiah 8:8. Y'all see Jeremiah 8:8? Zion Law School scholars, I know you see it. The author says he exposed their corrupt glosses and false interpretations, which they did what? Which they have put in scripture. Jeremiah 8, verse 8. We just read that, right? Their false glosses and false interpretations, which they have put in scripture, and which, because they dared not submit what? Their false interpretations and their corrupt glosses. Okay. They dared not to submit them to the trial of discussion. In other words, the author exposed these, and rather than saying, hey, let's talk about it, let's discuss it publicly, they decided to do what? They decided to have the man arrested and put in put in jail, fined, the whole 9 yards. Twice in prison. All right. Hoping that he would, not hoping, but I'm sure they were strategizing to have him exterminated once they got him in prison, in debtor's prison. All right. If they didn't convict him of the crime itself. The fines, they would get him through the fines, his not being able to pay the fines. So let's continue. But see, now ye who love truth and hold, but see, now you who love truth and hold learning and science to be more respectable than sanctified insanity and slobbering grace of Godship. What the text of sacred writ, that's the Gospels, will become, what the text of sacred writ, what the Gospels will become when shown on that bright light of critical erudition. In other words, what is he talking about? When you examine the text using the various scientific tools that we discussed earlier. How infinitely superior in sense, how exalted in significancy, how sublime in science, how rich of instruction. In other words, when you understand, when you begin to learn, let me just say this, when you begin to learn Ancient Ibaryath, you begin to learn Ancient Ibaryath, you'll be able to do what? You'll be able to see these Jeremiah 8:8 occurrences, right? You begin to learn Ancient Ibaryath, you can subscribe here, all right? When you begin to learn Ancient Ibaryath, learn grammar, parts of speech, etymology, get you some vocabulary, so on and so forth, you'll be able to do what? You'll be able to identify easily Jeremiah 8:8 occurrences. What are we talking about? Deception and lies. You'll be able to see it. All right, that's what the author is talking about. All right, so let's continue. Okay. All right. So we're on the next paragraph. We're going to begin here. So the author, let me see if I want to say anything. So the author in that above paragraph, it says, how infinitely superior in sense, how exalted in significancy, how sublime in science, how rich of instruction. In other words, when you know what the text actually says, you'll see that what? It is so rich, and they gave you the shells of peanuts, right? In other words, in the English, reading the text with their lies and deceit and omissions, they're giving you the peanut shell. The author is saying that when you learn etymology, etc., grammar, parts of speech, you're going to get the peanut. You're going to get that thing that has value. All right. But unless and until then, you got the peanut shell. You're chewing on peanut shells. The passage is introduced by the most sublime summons. What passage? Job chapter 19, verse 25, right? All right. The passage is introduced by a most sublime summons on our severest attention. Why do you persecute me, as capital G-O-D, and are not satisfied with my flesh? That's Job speaking, it sounds like. Quote, oh, that my words were now written. Job is saying, oh, that my words were now written. Oh, that they were printed in a book. End quote. Printed in a book is devilishly awkward, is a devilishly awkward figure of speech for a man to have hit upon 3,000 or 4,000 years before printing was invented. Did y'all ever think about that? What is Job talking about? The author is saying, well, there was no printing press 3,000, 4,000 years ago. How is it that this man Job is talking about he wishes that his words were printed in a book? All right, so let's continue. Quote, that they were graven in an iron pen and lead in the rock forever, end quote. It ends with the words, quote, yet in my flesh I shall see, capital G-O-D, whom I shall see for myself, and mine eyes shall behold, and not another, though my veins be consumed within me. Now that's very interesting, right? Because he needs veins and he needs arteries for his eyes to see. So how is he going to see? This is the type of madness that the author is talking about. All right. All right. So yet in my flesh, remember the flesh has been decomposed and there's worms on it. Yet in my flesh, I shall see, capital G-O-D. So get that picture, y'all. A decomposing body with worms on it, brought back alive, standing before the Most High. Can y'all get that picture in your head? A decomposed body with worms all over it, standing before the Most High. Let's continue. Yet in my flesh shall I see, capital G-O-D. Now remember, he has no veins and arteries. They're all decomposed. He has no blood flow in or out to function or to feed his eyes. So where's his vision coming from? All right. Yet in my flesh shall I see, capital G-O-D, whom I shall see for myself. See that? And mine eyes shall behold. Mine eyes shall behold. So what about the tissues in the eye, the lens, the muscles? How is that possible? This is the madness that the author is talking about. And not another, notice that, and not another, though my veins be consumed within me. Y'all got that? In other words, he don't have any veins. He don't have any arteries and no veins. So the author is saying that this is ridiculous, it's madness. All right. Let's continue. Let me see, how long have we been going, y'all? I don't know how long we've been going. Give me 1 second. All right, let me check if I can. All right, so I think we'll do one more page. I was hoping I could get through all of this today, but maybe that's not going to happen, y'all. Maybe that's not going to happen. I want to keep these live streams less than 1.5 hours because I think it's too much. If it goes 2 hours, it might discourage people from completing them. Give me 1 second, y'all. I need to get some water, and this is a lot of work, y'all, to tell you the truth. All right, I need to get some water. I hope you all are enjoying this live stream presentation. Some of it might be offensive, but keep in mind, this is the author's point of view. All right, it's the author's point of view. It's also helpful to hear other people's point of view and their perspective. Whether we agree with it or not, we can still learn something. I know I learned a lot from this author. I like the way he thinks, because he makes me think of things and see things in ways that I haven't seen them before, you know? So I appreciate that. I hope y'all appreciate it as much as I do. Okay. All right. The thing to keep in mind is that this author is not attacking anybody. He's trying to help people, you know, by sharing his information. So keep that in mind too. All right, so we are on page 338. 338. Trying to think if we should, you know what, y'all, I think we've been going for more than, I'm not sure how long we've been going. Let's see. Should we do this? Well, yeah, let's do 338, and then we can reassess if we're gonna go further or not, okay? All right. So page 338, we'll start at the top. Here we go. The very striking and infinitely important variations of the Greek and Latin from our English translation, and probably the Hebrew text, he says, and probably the Hebrew text, which is itself but a translation from the original Arabic. Y'all hear that? Stand in demonstrative proof that the effort of the English translators has been precisely that of our Protestant clergy at this day. That is, not to discover the meaning of the text, but as much as possible to conceal the meaning of the text, not to instruct the people, but to keep the people in ignorance. Y'all got that? So I'm going to show Jeremiah chapter 8 one more again. So for those of y'all who didn't get it the first time, or the 20th time, or the 100th time, or if you're new, I'll be polite. If you're new, here it is one more again. Jeremiah chapter 8, verse 8. How can you say we are wise and the law of the Most High is with us, and we are learned in its language and teachings? Behold, the truth is that the lying pen of the scribes have made the law into a lie, a mere code of ceremonial observances, which is religion. Everybody see that? All right, let's go back to the devil's pulpit. All right. So there you have it. There you have it. Whether you accept it and act on it, that's completely up to you, right? The very striking and infinitely important variations of the Greek and Latin from our English translation, y'all got that? The Greek says something different from the Latin, and the English says something different. All right, that's what the author is saying. And probably of the Hebrew text, well, for sure, right? We just read Jeremiah chapter 8, verse 8, which is itself but a translation from the original Arabic, stands in demonstrative proof. So the author is saying that's evidence. That's evidence the English doesn't say what the Latin says. The English doesn't say what the Greek says. All right? That the effort of the English translators, y'all see that? The English translators has been precisely that of our Protestant clergy And this at this day, that is not to discover the meaning of the text, but to conceal the meaning of it, not to instruct the people, but to keep them in ignorance. Jeremiah chapter 8, verse 8. I cannot stress enough to subscribe to the 101 Ancient Ibaryath course. I've done the best that I can to make it as close to free as possible. It's only $10 per month. There's no contract you can cancel. The market value of that course is easily $10,000. Easy, easy. All right. But it's up to you to take it. It's your heritage. Do you want it? Do you want to be kept in ignorance and getting dumber as the days go by, as the author says? Or do you want to return to the Most High and reclaim your heritage? Right? Anyway, let's continue. The Latin Vulgate has it, quote, I know that my Redeemer liveth, and in the last day I shall rise up out of the earth. And again, I shall be invested with my skin, and in my flesh I shall see my capital G-O-D, end quote. And for the words, quote, though my veins be consumed within me, end quote, the Latin Vulgate has it, quote, this hope is laid up in my bosom, all right, end quote. And then it says sinus. The Greek of the Septuagint has it, quote, for I know that he who shall liberate me is perpetually dwelling in the temple over the earth. My skin, which pumps up these, shall rise again. For these things are accomplished for me before the capital L-O-R-D, which thing I understand or represent in my own person, which things my eye has seen and not another. For all things are perfected to me in my breast. There's an asterisk that reads, and there's the Greek. So y'all see how different those were, right? You see how these sound more reasonable than the other. That other one was completely ridiculous, right? Now let's continue reading. A little bit of difference that I believe from anything that appears in your vulgar tongue. The author is being sarcastic here. The devil a word about the worm's meat. That's right. They didn't put anything in there about the worm's meat, did they? And the rot in the man's loins. They didn't put anything in that either. Or of any such stuff as could serve for a basis of the Bethlehemite idea that dead men's flesh, after having been eaten by worms and undergone a million decompositions and recompositions through millions of years, should appear alive again. Y'all see that? Clearly, Jeremiah chapter 8, verse 8. Who then was Job? The learned Jewish rabbis who have plagiarized this work from the Chaldean and Arabian astronomers admit that Job was a mere personification, an imaginary being that never had any existence but in poetry and fiction. Let me repeat that. Who then was Job? The learned Jewish rabbi who have plagiarized this work from the Chaldean and Arabian astronomers admit that he was a mere personification, right? He was a mere personification. Job was not real. Job represents some natural phenomenon, okay? An imaginary being that never had any existence but in poetry and fiction. Though a poor guess has been made to identify him, that is Job, with Jobab, the fifth descendant from Abraham, from the similarity of the name Joab. All right, so everybody see that? Joab and Job sound similar, so they're saying that maybe Job was Joab. To that of Joab in the series, quote, Abraham begat Isaac, Isaac begat Esau, Esau begat Ruel, Ruel begat Cruel, and Cruel begat Jobab. But without the addition of a single letter to the name, without any variation at all, but our remembrance that the Greeks, who have no letter V in their alphabet, but always represented the letter V by a B, B as in boy, B as in Victor, B as in boy. Okay. So the Greeks who have no letter V, V as in Victor, in their alphabet, but always represented that letter by a B, B as in boy, as they wrote. And now we see the Greek word here. Let me highlight that. Y'all see that? As they wrote for Virgilius. And we see another Greek word. Y'all see that? For Severus. So they must have written and could have written in no other way than Job for the deity who? The deity whose name is spelled J-O-V-E. Is that clear, scholars? Is that clear? All right. So we know who the deity whose name is spelled J-O-V-E is. If you're not aware, we cover it in this live stream. So you have to go back and review. All right, let's continue. And says the learned Bryant, there is good reason to think that the tetragrammaton deity, all right, we see that the name of the capital God of Israel underwent a life change and was converted to, let me show y'all here, and was converted to this name where the highlight is. Y'all see that? By the Africans pronounced, wow, I didn't know this now. Y'all got that? And says the learned Bryant, there is good reason to think that the deity or the tetragrammaton deity, the name of the capital God of Israel, underwent a life change and was converted to, the Greek word here, by the Africans pronounced J-U-B-A, J-U-B-A, which in Latin signifies the feathers in a cock's neck, which he holds up when he fights. Also, the red flesh, like crest in a snake's neck, precisely such as were the form and shape of the Holy Ghost, when he sat in tongues of fire upon the heads of the apostles on the day of Pentecost. And as you see them here upon the heads of my two celestial fighting cocks, Castor and Pollock, the twins of May, the Holy Ghost always being famous for making people devilishly hot-headed. Get it? The candles on top of the head, giving them the gift of gab and setting them a-fighting. Wow. As certainly then as 6 may be proved to be the same as half a dozen, it is proved that Job and the deity whose name is spelled J-O-B-E and the tetragrammaton deity are personifications of the one and the self same great themes of all allegory, the capital S-U-N, sun and the year. Y'all got that? Job represents, or Job is the sun, and so is the deity, the tetragrammaton and all of its forms. Astronomically, they represent the sun, sun, and the year. All right. That's pretty interesting stuff. All right, let's continue. Next paragraph. And the perfect and upright man of the East with his 7 sons, S-O-N-S, with his 7 S-O-N sons, and 3 daughters, tempted by Satan, and falling into the great affliction, and then getting out of his affliction, and becoming as prosperous as ever, and finding his 7 S-O-N sons and 3 daughters alive again, and none the worse for having all being killed. At the beginning of the story is Chaldean gospel, precisely of the character of our Egyptian fable of J.C. the Christ figure, of which the gist was nothing more than the natural history of the year, which has the 7 summer months. That would be what the 7 S-O-N sons from March to September for his or its sons, S-O-N, sons. The 3 extra zodiacal feminine constellations for its 3 daughters, the old Mother Virgin Mary that tempts him to curse capital G-O-D and die, for his wife, and Boots, Hercules, and Serpentinarius, for his comforters, who descend with him into his state of affliction when below the equator. State of affliction below the equator. What happens below the equator? Well, let's continue reading. Okay, so we're talking about his comforters who descended with him as Job, into his state of affliction when below the equator. Job is below the equator. The sun, S-U-N, is below the equator. Think astronomically, in which, as if almost by the pun itself, old Boots or Bildad, the shooty, Serpentarius is Zophar, and Neamathite, and Hercules is Eliphaz, the Temanite, while capital G-O-D is invariably the Gad, G-A-D, of the tribes of Israel, that is the ram of the sons of the zodiac, while capital G-O-D is invariably the Gad, G-A-D, of the tribes of Israel, that is the ram of the signs of the zodiac. So capital G-O-D is Gad. Gad is the ram zodiac sign. All right. So what is this talking about? Below the equator. All right. So when the sun goes below the equator, what's happening? The number of daylight hours are progressively getting shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter until you get into deep winter, December 21st, 22nd, where the number of nighttime hours reaches its maximum and the number of daytime hours reaches its minimum, right? So December 21st, 22nd, that is the bottomless pit. That's Satan, the devil. All right. So let's continue. So the author gave us the analogies. All right. So let's continue. Hence, in strict observance of the astronomical analogies, capital G-O-D, the S-U-N sun, and the constellation of Aries, the ram. Y'all got that? Y'all got that? Capital G-O-D, the S-U-N sun, and the constellation of Aries, the ram, asks Job, or J-O-B-E, the year in his state of dejection. After the autumn equinox, canst thou bind the sweet influence of the Pleiades, or lose the bands of Orion? canst thou bring forth the 12 signs in the season? Or canst thou guide Arcturus with his sons, where the names of those constellations are precisely the same as they are on our celestial globe? Y'all got that? Wow. Y'all got that? Did y'all get that? Those names are exactly the same as the names on the celestial globe. So we're going to have to come back and look at this. I think we're going to stop at this paragraph because next presentation, next live stream, I want to see if we can visualize what he's talking about here. All right. Okay. At this day, and Pleiades, Arcturus, and Orion, though so manifestly none other than names of the fixed stars are spoken of, as much as if they were real personages, and certainly they are quite as much as Job and his three friends, or capital G-O-D, and the devil, who each sustain their respective parts in this beautiful astronomical drama. Wow. Let's stop here, y'all. We'll come back and dig into this deeper. All right. Tomorrow, around the same time. All right. We'll do it again around the same time. So for all of you who have went out and purchased 911 Ibaryath Rescue, the international edition, a special thanks to you. I do appreciate you ordering from us. All of your interest helps. The more you learn, the stronger we become as a nation, right? The more you learn, the more you'll start to do whatever those things are that you know you should be doing. So special thanks for you all for supporting. I think we've sold about 15 of these books, right? We've sold about 15, I guess, in the last couple days. I don't know if it's been a week, but at most a week. So thank you for your support. And if you haven't already ordered 911 Ibaryath Rescue, go out and order it. All right, this is the only book I want you to order on Amazon. All of our other books, order on zionlawschool.org, okay? So thank you for everyone who has already subscribed to our streaming 101 Ancient Ibaryath course. We appreciate your support and look forward to assisting you, teaching you more and more, getting you to the point where you are an independent learner and you have mastery over the topic, okay? And you can go into the scriptures and you'll be able to identify Jeremiah chapter 8, verse 8 occurrences on your own. You'll be able to translate, render, do everything. I hope that you will allow us to continue, allow me to continue to be a part of your learning journey, all right? So don't forget to subscribe right now. There's no contract, $10 subscription fee, that's all. Where are you gonna go and learn Ibaryath for $10 a month? Okay, and this is an intensive course, y'all. This is an intensive, comprehensive introductory course. Come to our Saturday class, 506 The Curses course, every Saturday, 10 a.m., y'all. All right, so you're gonna see some powerful demonstrations on Saturdays. The live online class, you're gonna see powerful demonstrations. You've seen nothing, really. I mean, what we go through in this book has been very interesting, but wait until you see what we do in our Saturday class. All right, we're gonna knock your socks off. Next Saturday, we're gonna go into the divine name. So if you wanna know more about the divine name, come to class. Here's the link right here. So let me highlight this. 506 Curses course, we're gonna go into a deep dive on the Tetragrammaton, right? Click the link, register, be there. 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Saturday, this Saturday, all right? Also, here's the link for the streaming 101 Ancient Ibaryath class, all right? There's no more $1 trial. That's over with, y'all. No more $1 trial, okay? So if you go down to the bottom, you will see the Devil's Pulpit, the link, download the link to get the PDF and take it and print it, all right? And the last thing I want to say, oh, if you like me, or if you like the content, or if you like the way I teach, consider making a donation to support our work or purchase our products. Either way, we have lots of books, okay? We have classes, right? The 101 the streaming 101 Ancient Ibaryath class and the 506 Curses course. But you can also purchase any one of these 7 books if you want to support us, but especially if you want to know more about how to reclaim your heritage. All right, we have 7 books here, okay, that you can purchase if you want to support us. All right, and then what else? What else? You can make a cash donation through our Cash App, which is $sign Dr. Yasapa, $sign DRYASAPA. So we do need your support. All right, PayPal, our PayPal is paypal.me/Zion Law School. And let me remind y'all too, I'll be starting to put the project together to translate the first 5 books of the Hebrew Bible, translated into Ibaryath in English. All right, so if y'all want to support that, I'll have a Patreon or like a GoFundMe, or if you want to, you can send it to our Cash App, $sign Dr. Yasapa, $sign DRYASAPA, $sign DRYASAPA. All right, or our PayPal, which is paypal.me/Zion Law School. So if y'all want to support the writing of the first 5 books of the Hebrew Bible into Ibaryath, be sure to support if you would like to. You know, if you can afford to and you would like to, I would be very appreciative if you can do that. Last thing I want to do is start a project and not be able to finish, right? That I don't want to do that. And I also don't want to live on soy sauce and rice because I'm trying to handle a big project. And you can imagine that's an all day, everyday job, right? That's an all day, everyday job. So if y'all have it in your heart to support that project, I would greatly appreciate it. I'm going to get it done. Either way, I would just be in a better place and the work output would be better if I had the support of our entire nation. So that includes you. All right, so I'm Dr. Yasapa, and it's been a pleasure presenting this information to you. And I'm looking forward to seeing everybody here around the same time tomorrow, y'all. I'll update y'all with what's going on in my life too. I think I'll update y'all when we finish this book. All right. So we got less than 2 pages to finish. Okay. And tomorrow we're going to visualize these stars. Okay. We're going to visualize these stars so we can see exactly what the author is talking about. And that's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to that, visualizing those stars. And don't forget also, be sure to print the PDF, the Devil's Pulpit. Make sure you print it, because when we do our debriefing You want to study. You want to study in advance, so that we could have a very rich conversation. All right. And I'm going to need you all to call in with your comments and questions and so forth and so on. All right. Maybe some of y'all can even come in with a link and participate. Right. We can have fun with it. We can have a lot of fun with it. You know, we got a small group, and this can be really, really fun and educational, because, you know, repetition is the key factor in learning, believe it or not. Repetition and making connections, right? So we were talking in our Saturday class. That was Saturday, our live online class, and we were talking about the benefit of review, which is repetition, right? And how information goes from short-term memory. So first time you come into contact with something, or if you don't come in contact with it frequently, a memory of it is produced, but it's a biochemical reaction. It's not physical. But the more you discuss something, the more you review it, guess what happens? Instead of it being a biochemical reaction, which happens and then it goes away, you actually begin to form physical neural networks, right? And the more you think about it, and the more you think, you begin to gain new connections to other neural networks in your brain. And then you have a permanent memory, all right? And it's literally a physical structure. So it goes from being a chemical reaction in short-term memory, but the more you do it, the more you talk about it, the more you repeat it, the more you think on it and about it, it forms physical neural networks. Y'all got that? That's some heavy stuff. All right, that's really some heavy stuff. So, oh man, I don't see anything in the comment section. Y'all got anything y'all want to say or put in the comment section before we close out? Let me take a look. If there's anything in the comment section, I'll give y'all a second if y'all want to put something in the comment section. If not, I'll wait a couple minutes. If not, we're going to call it a night. But y'all remember. Jeremiah 8, chapter 8, everything in scripture, according to Jeremiah, is not true. Jeremiah chapter 8, verse 8, Amplified Bible. How can you say we are wise and the law of the Most High is with us and we are learned in its language and teachings? How can you say that? Behold, the truth is that the lying pen of the scribes have made the law into a lie, a mere code of ceremonial observances. Ceremonial observances, that's religion, right? The scribes, our ancestors, and in modern day, our oppressor, they write lies in scripture. And you can see those lies. That's what this 101 course, this 101 Ancient Ibaryath course is all about. Secondarily, primarily, is to teach you the language. But when you begin to learn Ancient Ibaryath and other skills, these Jeremiah 8:8 occurrences begin to pop off the page. And if I bring them to your attention, you will see them and you'll understand them. Just come to our Saturday class at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, so y'all can see what I'm talking about. All right. So it's no longer abstract. You can actually see it. But y'all keep that in mind. Everything that's in scripture is not true. And that's the author's whole point. All right. So Shalawama, I'm Dr. Dryasapa. Islam to all the Moors. I'll see y'all.